Hey, Rachel. How are you doing?
Jordan, I'm honored to be here.
Well,
So fun
I'm
to
so
do this with a friend.
excited to get to chat with you. We're just hopefully going to talk through your experiences as a mom. And for those of you who don't know who Rachel is, she is like the queen of girlhood and friendship and motherhood. So I'm so excited for her to get to kind of share some of her story and her wisdom with you. So if you can, just kind of tell people about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Rachel. I have two littles, Maddox and Oliver. Maddox is 3.5, Oliver is 1.5. I just noticed, do you see that in the background? It's a remote control car. Like that is my season right now. And that's something Jordan and I share. So I feel like that makes us like fun, fast
The boy
friends.
mom
Like a
life.
boy moms. Yes, it's rowdy. We say chokeholds and tractors. Like
That's a
that's what
big
we are right
remote
now.
back there.
Yes, it's Thomas's remote control car that Maddox plays with. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I'm married to Thomas, the other
Who
the
is
other guy in the
clearly
picture.
your third boy child.
Like aren't all husbands. I love him to death, but it's like there's so much testosterone in this household that I'm like I love having my girlfriends over, so I'm honored that you would say I'm the queen of girlhood because
You
I'm still trying to
are.
get in touch with my feminine side with all this crazy boy energy in my house. But we thrive. We love it. My husband is a pilot. He serves in the military, but he also is a pilot on the civilian side of things. So he's gone a lot and has just a very interesting schedule, which leaves our lifestyle a bit unpredictable. And when he's home, he is home. Like I am married to a rock star of a dad. He is hands on, present, and so helpful. And I'm grateful for that. I know it's a privilege. And then, but when he's gone, he's gone. And I am solo mom, all hands on deck, and calling my village every day for at least one help or favor. And I have gotten okay with that. Jordan's on the list. Like,
So
I,
essential. And
at church, Jordan and I go to the same church. She's like, "How are you?" I don't know if
I
you
can
remember
just
this.
vouch for the fact at how amazing
Years.
Thomas is.
Mhm.
We had like a bonfire at your house, like probably
Yeah.
over a year ago. And
Yeah.
he introduced me to like this Reese's cup s'mores. And I'm like, only the most fun, cool person would think of this because I love chocolate, and that has never crossed my mind.
It's the best. So yeah,
So
Thomas is
good.
so fun. He's spunky, he's helpful, he's like really my best friend. It gets crazy sometimes just with him in and out with just his work. And so our reintegration days, you probably wouldn't say that we're friends just because reintegration days are hard. But
Yeah.
I will say, like overall, I think we do team very well in our house for how crazy our lifestyle is. So
Yeah.
that's me. And then my work looks a lot like what we're doing now. I have a podcast. It's called Real Talk with Rachel Awtrey. It started in 2018 and has just become one of my favorite outlets. I think if no one ever listened, I'd probably still do it just because it's so refreshing for my own soul, just to be able to overflow, share what I'm learning, talk about taboo topics, but all through a faith lens. It's like our girl chat, girl talk that you can do and listen to while dishes or running errands or going on a walk. Like my prayer for this is that you walk away with a good practical or nugget of wisdom you've never thought of before,
Yeah.
but listening didn't feel heavy. And that's the feedback we get back, and it's just so much fun. So that's what I do. I'm an author, I'm a speaker,
Yes,
and
you're writing a book.
all about yeah, like living a life that you actually enjoy, no matter what it looks like around you and on paper. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and like no matter how stressful and crazy it is. And so that's what I kind of want to dive into today is like how motherhood is just hard.
Mhm.
So we're going to focus on like motherhood and
Yeah,
just life with a baby. So I'd love for you to
sure.
just share, well, really like, I feel like everyone talks about their birth stories and they share all about like how labor and delivery went and oh, things went great or things were traumatic, but then no one ever kind of reaches that postpartum story,
Hmm. Hmm.
especially because postpartum, it's kind of forever. Like you're always post delivery and baby. So you kind of, I feel like the temptation is to feel like the story isn't finished because it's not. But those first several months after having a baby are just something different. And I feel like we never get to the point where we share our struggles, our triumphs, and that sort of thing. So I'd love if you could just kind of walk us through what your pregnancy and births were like with both your boys before we dive into like the hard stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so I feel like this is kind of parallel, but I think preparing for birth is like preparing for your wedding day, and not preparing for postpartum is like not preparing for your marriage. So it's
That
like
is such a good analogy.
birth is the event, right? It's like what it's going to take to make this happen, like a wedding. But if you don't focus on what it's going to take to actually thrive in marriage or thrive postpartum and motherhood, then like birth is not the destination. And I think so much emphasis is put on that. And it's beautiful. And I'm so glad that we're in an age where we can talk about it, because birth can be very awesome and very traumatic all at the same time. But it's not the end, and we have to like help women see through it. So I love this conversation. I and also I have a friend that just had her baby yesterday, and she texted me like, "Hey, I'm in labor." And the one thing that I always say to my friends when they text me like baby's coming is, "I'll see you on the other side." Because it truly is like a 2.0 of yourself that you've never met and you don't know. So like you're meeting your baby for the first time, but I also feel like you're meeting another person of you that you're about to encounter, and you might not like her either. Like, it's okay. Like, you have to get used to her. And so, yes, I love this conversation. Birth plays a role, but it's not the main character.
Yes.
With Maddox, my oldest, we actually had him in the middle of pilot training, which was crazy. We had an option to have him at a military hospital, and we said no thanks. So we had him. No, I mean, no hate to military hospitals. I just wanted a little bit more say in my healthcare journey. So we drove 45 minutes to Starkville, Mississippi, and had him. But he was an induction. Just really quickly, I had high blood pressure with him near the end of my pregnancy. All of my babies like to cook, so he was 42-week baby.
Oh my God.
Jordan, yeah.
I did not know
And
that.
all my friends were having their babies at like 39, 40 weeks. And I'm like, that must be nice. I'm going to be pregnant for a whole nother month. And we have the same due date. It's
And
wild.
remind me his birthday.
His is March 14th.
Okay, so at
2021.
least you weren't like suffering through the heat.
No. I mean, if I could line it up
42
to be a
weeks
March
is
baby
big.
every time. Oh, I was massive and so swollen. And I didn't have preeclampsia. I was sent to
Oh,
the hospital
good.
several times to get tested, and I never did, but it was high blood pressure. So anyways, eventually I went to my, like, I think it was like my 41 and a half week appointment. And she was like, I need you to go to the hospital. I'm like, no, I'm fine. Cause I was like, I'm gonna have this baby on my own, spontaneous birth, like, read all the books, had all the ideas. And she was like, no, queen, like your stroke level. I cannot send you home. You are a liability. So either I call an ambulance or you drive yourself to the hospital. I was like, fine. So we went and was induced. I had a very long labor with induction. It ended up being like 36-hour labor, but
Wow.
I know it ended in vaginal birth and was great. Like it really actually wasn't traumatic besides the fact that it just was long. Had Maddox, and our nursing journey was very interesting. I feel like my lactation consultant quickly threw me a nipple shield, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I wasn't really prepared. And again, I prepared for birth, but I had like literally the moment after I birthed him, I was not prepared. So handed
Did
me a
you
nipple
take a
shield.
breastfeeding class or anything like that?
So this was post COVID, and they did not host breastfeeding classes where I was, and I didn't know options because I hadn't met Jordan Clark yet. So so all you people take advantage of Birmingham breastfeeding and her classes. They're amazing. I wish I would have had it. But she told me I had inverted nipples, threw me a nipple shield. I popped that sucker on, and Maddox latched in no time, which means it took about 3.5 months for us to wean him off of the nipple
I feel
shield.
you.
If you need one, that's fine. If you don't need one, it's not fine. And I did not need one. Hindsight being 2020.
Yeah, the reality of moms having inverted nipples is like not that common. And
Thomas jokes. He's like, thinking back, did we even try to like flick them? I was like, no. Like no one even like tried. Like no one
to
even tried.
stimulate them.
Literally, like we didn't know anything. And so
I know it's irrelevant now, but what I
sure.
suspect happened is your induction was so long. I bet you got so many fluids. It like looked
Swole.
like your boobs were super swollen and your nipples were like flattened, but probably only because you were like, it's called third spacing. So you just had so much fluid like in between your vessels that it like looked like
Wow.
that. But yes, in hindsight, Thomas is so right. There are ways you can avoid that. And I feel you, 3.5 months is a long time. And
Mhm.
those things are clear, like they get lost in the couch cushions.
I was about to say the amount of times I lost them and was SOS 911 like at dinner, and I didn't have a way to nurse him because he wouldn't latch on my skin was terrifying, stressful, and I mean, like having a screaming hungry baby in public is probably like that's how I die. Like it's
Mm.
just really stressful for me. And so for anyone, and so I want to go back to that version of Rachel and give her a hug and be like, let me just redirect you a little bit. I did go back to my doctor at one point postpartum and say, I think this is harder than it should be.
Mm.
Like, is there something wrong with me? And my doctor, who was a female, looked at me and she said, I can typically look in my patient's eyes and tell them like if they're okay or not. And I think you have your head screwed on straight. I just think this is stressful. Like you're going to be okay. And again, hindsight is so clear. I definitely was struggling with postpartum anxiety. I was
Mm.
having super intrusive thoughts. I would not walk down the stairs with socks on my feet in fear I would drop my baby. Like
Mm.
weird things weird places my mind took myself that I didn't think was normal. And when I went to my doctor and was like, is this normal? She told me, you're fine.
So
Um,
for you in that moment, was that encouraging that she said that, or did you feel like she was being dismissive? Like, did you feel supported in that moment?
maybe, yeah, I think it was helpful for someone to be like, it is normally this hard and you will be okay. Like that's comforting, I think, to for anyone to feel. So in the moment, yes. But then when I got back home and I was thrown back into my environment or a stressful situation or Thomas having long nights of flight and
Mm.
me tending the baby at night on my own, like all of that, and it got more stressful, I kept bringing myself back to the conversation she had and it no longer was encouraging. It was like, but what if I can't do this? Like, what
Mm.
actually if I can't? And then when the moments my mind went to really dark spaces, like, I can't will myself out of those moments. It's not
Yeah.
something you can just like think your way out of, or
Mm-mm.
like, I like chemically was off. And I just honestly look back at my postpartum journey with Maddox, and it was beautiful because I had so much fun help, and we were in an incredible community in pilot training, and it just was fun. But I feel like now going through postpartum round 2, I know what it's supposed to be like because I did
Mm.
find the help that I need and I am on medicine postpartum this time. And I'm like, dang, I wonder how much more I would have enjoyed it if I had known the freedom that where my mind was supposed to have been the whole time and it wasn't.
Yeah.
So like now I would say I feel like she was dismissive. In the moment, I was like, oh, I guess this is how it's supposed to be. Like I didn't know. I didn't have anything to compare
Yeah.
it to.
You have no idea.
So, anyways, I nursed Maddox, weaned him off of the nipple shield. Was great. Like I loved our nursing journey. I never was like engorged. I always produced just enough. I didn't ever really pump. I kind of just nursed on demand, which was really helpful for our lifestyle because we traveled a ton. We flew a lot. So to be able to pacify him, also nurse him, like was just what I needed in that season.
Yeah.
Um, I really loved our journey. We nursed for about 9, 10 months, and then I got pregnant again very quickly after. I
10
did
months
not
in,
know.
that's amazing.
Thanks. Um,
That's hard work.
it was hard work, but I didn't know any different. I was like, this is just what you do, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So I got pregnant, and I literally dried up overnight. Like when I just remember one nursing session, Maddox was just frustrated, and he was like switching from one side to the other, and just like what's happening? And then he just was angry all day, and I was like, that's so
Ugh.
weird. I was like, well, let me try to pump, maybe he'll take a bottle. When I tell you I pumped for like 3 days and I maybe got 2.5 ounces all 3 days, I was like,
For anyone.
I
No.
that's so weird. I was like, that's
Oh,
so weird, so weird. So I called one of my friends and was like, what do I do? She's like, so try taking these nutrients, like you might be nutrient deficient, like try drink a lot more water and like increase your calorie intake, like see if that's it, and also take a pregnancy test. And I was like, no, I refused the last one. She was like, no, like actually you should probably just take one. And I did, and I was pregnant. I was like, well,
Wait, so how far along were you in hindsight?
I was 5 weeks at that point.
Okay, so
I
early.
and I hadn't got my period back. So like I didn't know. I didn't have a cycle to like measure. Yeah.
Yes.
So
And
I was
like
early.
common misconception. Like a lot of people say you can't get pregnant while you're breastfeeding, but you can clearly you're a living testament to the fact that you can, and you can get pregnant because you ovulate before you bleed.
Bleed, right.
So that was probably the first time you ovulated after having Maddox.
Yeah. Which is crazy because it took us about 2 years to get pregnant with Maddox. And we never did fertility. Like we were about to, didn't, and then naturally was able to get pregnant with Maddox. So then when I got pregnant without even thinking about it,
Mm.
Thomas basically sneezed on me, I guess. I was like, whoa, whoa. I was like, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Isn't
So
it
dried
crazy how
up.
like your hormones just completely change after you have a baby?
Hmm. Yes. So dried
That's
up. That was the baby in between Maddox and Oliver. We named them Harlow. We lost Harlow around 12 weeks. Well, it was more like 11. Again, we don't really know how far along, but um like we probably lost Harlow around 9 or 10 weeks, but then my body actually miscarried around 12.
mm,
So that kind of just put my hormones on a wonky cycle. Postpartum became a lot harder because I felt like I was grieving. We had just moved again from military. I literally had no friends. I had family that was thousands of miles away because we were in Oklahoma and everybody else was in the Southeast, and didn't have great health care. And so my postpartum journey then looked completely different than right after
mm,
Maddox. So it's just so funny how they can all look so different depending on truly your circumstances too.
yeah.
Um, and then we accidentally got pregnant again. And I remember I didn't get my period back again from miscarriage to getting pregnant with Oliver.
So
So
what was the gap between Harlow and then that pregnancy test?
probably like 6 weeks.
Okay, so really fast.
Hmm. Hmm.
How was that for you emotionally?
Intense. It was weird. And I've talked about this too. I have an episode that's specifically about miscarriage, and I talk a lot about um, miscarrying Harlow and the emotions behind it, but I also talk about what it was like expecting after loss.
Mm,
So when I lost Harlow, I was really sad because I had eventually gotten to a point where I was starting to dream up what a life with Harlow would have looked like,
mm,
and Maddox so close together, and like siblinghood and all the things, and then losing the baby, I was like, whoa, that was really weird. It felt like a whiplash.
mm.
Also, I am like, okay to say equally, this is really twisted, but I think to be honest with the fact that I was a little bit relieved too, like, whoa, that was crazy. I can't believe it, was also equally true. And so, like, having to hold both where I'm like, I feel shame about being a little bit relieved,
Mm.
but at the same time, I'm so sad because I feel like I had gotten used to and like really accepted what that life would have been like, that I like my mind felt like it was being stretched to a lot of really, really weird spaces. And
Yeah.
again, walking through anxiety and not being helped either through counseling or medication, like that was just a lot to navigate. Then got pregnant with Oliver, and I was like, woof. I was like, this is just a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, good question. I think that he was teaching me a lot about like the comfort of the Lord and how you don't need a comforter if you're comfortable. And I think I had like tried so hard to build a very comfortable life where I was like, oh, I'll be fine. And
Yeah.
then eventually got to a place where I was like, actually, it's okay that I'm not. And it's okay. This is complicated. And it's okay that I don't have it figured out. And so it brought me to a need that I never knew I had. That makes sense. Because I
Yeah.
had built a pretty resilient life. So yeah, it taught me a lot. And also taught me that like I'm actually not in control because I was,
Yeah.
and this whole time like I wasn't being irresponsible. Like I was measuring my cycle to the best of my ability. I was taking my basal body temperature because I was trying to figure out what my body was doing through all of
Mm.
those crazy changes. And so when this happened again, I'm like, I thought I figured the system out, but I didn't. And so again, it's one of those, like, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And if it's not, it's not. Like, there's
Yeah.
nothing actually like you can do to yield it to be the way you want it to be. Nothing.
Hmm. Right. You're
Um,
just so out of control,
mhm.
especially like in really, I personally feel like I have never felt more out of control than during pregnancy. I have fortunately never experienced a loss, a miscarriage, but it's like, especially before you feel the baby move, it's just like there's really nothing I can eat, drink, no supplement I can take. There's
Yes,
really
yes,
nothing I can do to try to make this baby or ensure this baby's even healthy,
yes.
alive or healthy. And then, of
Mhm.
course, there's that reassurance when you start to feel baby move, but just that feeling of just like, just not knowing. So I can't imagine like that back and forth for you.
Yep.
So, what was like pregnancy and delivery with Ollie like?
Yeah, sweet Ollie. So we were surprised about his gender. We were like, at this point, we don't even know what we know.
What's one
So,
more
like,
surprise?
literally, I was like, I've always been curious about what that's going to be like. Let's see if we can make it to 20 weeks. So we made it to our anatomy scan, and they were like, do y'all want to know? We're like, no, we don't need to know.
So
Um,
fun.
so it was so fun. It was so fun. Like, would love a girl, but also we have a guy, we have a boy. So, like, I was fine for it to be a brotherhood situation. I was fine to have one of each. I was fine. So we were surprised. Pregnancy was fine. My body loved being pregnant with Oliver. I felt healthy. I didn't have any high blood pressure situations. Oliver's due date was the beginning of December. And then it got closer and closer to Christmas, and I started getting anxious because, again, my baby's cook. And we were headed up to 42 weeks, and I was like, Mr.
42 weeks
Doctor,
again?
yes. I was like, look, I I said, okay, if you were gonna let me go all the way to when you're comfortable, when would that be? He was like 42 weeks. And I was like, okay. And I think we were like at 40 and a half at this point. He's like, you can go a week and a half and then I'm not comfortable anymore. I was like, all right. He was like, so let's go ahead and put an induction on the calendar at the 42-week mark. And that was on December 23rd. And I was like, I refuse. I will not be at the hospital on Christmas Eve and Christmas.
Yeah.
No. He was like, okay. And I said, so when do I need to put the induction on the calendar so that I'll be out of there on the 23rd? He's like, then let's put you induced on the 19th. And I was like, okay. So we put the 19th on the calendar, and we were crawling up to the 19th. And I was like, I guess I'll be induced again. And I really, like the first time, craved a spontaneous birth experience, like to go into labor on my own, all
Yeah.
things. And then the night of the 17th, well, I guess it was the 18th, like early morning, like 4 a.m., woke up with contractions. And I was like, I wonder if it's it. And so I went to the shower. And then in the shower, I remember having to like grip the walls. I was like, this is it.
So it happened pretty fast.
It happened pretty fast. Yeah. So we went in ended up going in around 6 a.m., got actually intake. What do you call that? Like,
Like admitted.
admitted, thank you, around 9. And then I had him around 3 that afternoon. So, like, it did happen really
Okay.
quick. It was great. And then when he was born, which was so fun because we, again, didn't know, all the nurses and doctors had really voted on it being a girl based off of all the vitals of baby and stuff. So when he
Yeah.
was born, they were like, oh, it's a boy. It was so fun. I
It's a
highly recommend it if you're thinking about it.
boy.
But then he like crawled up to my nipple. Like, he was ready to go, like, and latched right away. So it's just so interesting how they were both so different. I will say, though, about
Hmm.
2 weeks into our nursing journey, he was a sad, sad, sad baby. Could not get him happy. And I'm like, nursing him would like put something in his mouth so he'd stop crying. But as soon as he was off, he would be so uncomfortable from
Mm.
eating and feeding that he would cry again. And so I would just, when in doubt, whip it out. And I was like, oh, maybe we nurse again. And then he was sad again. And all these things ended up, he had dairy intolerance. Like he just was really not processing dairy well. So I went dairy free. I tried my best. And
Mm.
eventually I got to a point too where I went to my doctor again and I said, what are the odds? This is harder than it should be. And he was like,
Mm.
hi, those are high odds. And I was like, really? And he was like, tell
Do you,
me, like, what?
do you remember how far out that was?
It was before my 6 week appointment. I want to say it was maybe like a month out, like 3 or 4 weeks out.
Okay.
I remember going to him and being like, I just feel like really overwhelmed, very micromanagey, angrier than I should be, needing help, but frustrated when I get it. And like, I don't have intrusive thoughts like I had the first time, and I don't worry. So I don't think it's anxiety. Maybe I'm depressed, but I'm happy to wake up in the mornings. And he was like, oh no, that's textbook postpartum anxiety. I was like, is it? And he was like,
Mm.
anxiety is not worry and fear necessarily. It's craving control and things that you don't have. And like whether you and he was so kind and said this, and I want to pass it along to friends listening. He said, I don't care if you woke up on the wrong side of the bed and that day is really hard, or your house burnt down, your cat died, and you got in a car wreck. Like, if you're having a really hard day postpartum, like, there's a chance that under all of it, there might be something else going on. And I don't ever want to risk you getting to the end of your 18-year motherhood journey and being like, oh, I'm so glad that's over. He's like, what
Mm.
if, like, there's a chance that this could be actually enjoyable for you? And I was like,
Mm.
wow. And he said, and the only thing stopping you from enjoying it is you. And I was like, dang. And he said, I'm going to prescribe you some medication and you pick it up when you're ready. Like, it's there waiting for you. And if you want to pick it up today on your way home, it'll be available. If you want to pick it up in a month, it'll be available. But like, I need you to know that that's an available option for you. And that is something I
Mm.
would diagnose you with. And that was like
Man,
really hard to hear.
what a great doctor.
Great doctor, obsessed. Great doctor. And I left feeling like really ashamed. I was like, "Ugh, I'm stronger than this. Like, I've got this. Like, this is a season. I can work myself out of it." And then I got brought back to what he said, which was like, I don't want you to get to the end of the day and be like, oh, I'm so glad they're in bed. Or like get to the
Mm.
end of your 18-year mother journey and be like, whew, that was rough. Like, I really want you to enjoy this because it is actually
Mm.
enjoyable. And that got my attention where I was like, yeah, I want to like my kids. And the only thing that
Yeah.
stopped me from liking them was like chemicals in my brain, like weren't allowing me to
Yeah.
actually see it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I went on medicine and I'm still on medicine. And I tried one time to get off and we made a good decision as a family. That was not a good idea. So I'm
Yeah.
like, fine. I'm like, I've admitted it. I'm like, I hate that that's what actually helps Rachel be Rachel. But I also will die to myself and swallow my pride and a pill every morning to be able to show up and be the best version of me that my family and myself needs. So
Mm.
that was my journey with Ollie. In hindsight, I'm like, dang, I wish I had this with Maddox. I really think it would have been easier. So yeah.
Well, I love your I'm going to swallow my pride and a pill.
Mhm.
That is just so relatable and just so true. Like on a daily basis, you just have to kind of reset and just take a step back and just accept the things that you can
Mhm.
control. Like you can control taking that medication. Like you stopped and then you added it back in. And
Yes.
thankfully, like the Lord has provided us with medical ways to get help
Yeah.
to feel better. So random, but do you feel like the dairy stuff impacted your mental health?
Yes. Who knew you could actually go a little delulu not having queso in your life? It's true. Like, I literally was like, if you take away my creamer one more time, you're gonna have to check me in somewhere because I am not well. But like, I hate to say that, but it's so true. I think just like with all of the change and like not having like the little luxuries that you didn't know you counted on being taken away too because you're trying to be selfless and like do something someone else needs, after you're touched out,
Mm,
after you're exhausted, after you're literally on call, like puts you at a very thin place that having to not have to think about meals I had to make and feed my family so that I could eat them too, going out to restaurants and not knowing what I was going to order on the menu, like added so many unknowns and a new layer of learning that like I didn't want to have to do and I didn't have the margin to do. So yes, it totally
yeah.
put me a little bit deeper in that space, I think, than having just a normal like diet and breastfeeding journey for sure.
Yeah. Did it help? Like, did he become happier when you made that switch?
He did, but I did not. So around 6 months, I finally was like, I was like, I love you. We're going to get you some good, like lactose sensitive, whatever formula. And he loved it.
Uh-huh.
So um, I weaned really quickly. I think my body was really tired of doing all of that too.
Mm.
So weaned quickly and then
Yeah.
also added dairy back.
And
Like I remember some of my
did
friends being like,
he do
let's
well
go
with
get
that?
queso.
Mexican queso margaritas.
Yes, yes.
So, and I remember he wasn't a great sleeper either, right?
No. His postpartum journey was just so incredibly different. Like, and it's so funny too now that he's like 18 months and he has the personality and the spunk and he's like running everywhere. I'm like, oh, no wonder you don't like to sleep. Like, you're always wanting to do something. And now he sleeps because he wears himself out during the day. Praise God. Now
Mm.
he sleeps and he's an incredible sleeper. He's like a teenager. He'll sleep until like 8:30. I have to wake him up. And even when I do,
Oh, that's
he like
amazing.
literally is like, go away. Like I'm still sleeping. So it's funny because I also want to say this to the mom who is maybe in the depths of sleep deprivation that like they will not be 16 years old and still asking for you every hour. Like
Mm.
eventually, at some point, a day will happen and something will click and change. And that's what happened with Oliver. So yeah, no, he did not
Mm.
like to sleep at the beginning, loved contact, napping, but now he's great.
That's great. So, and I know every baby's different, but just for you and your experience, when did that change kind of happen? Because it really, for all the moms out there, like frequent night waking is common really through the first year. And so, when did you kind of see that shift for Oliver?
Probably when we started solid. For him, I think honestly, it was like a hunger thing. But I also was so hesitant and reluctant to like feed him more because every after every feeding he was so sad because of all of his
Mm.
stomach and like gastro things going on. So
Mhm.
when he was able to be like supplemented with formula and like we actually weaned on formula and we started adding basic solids, he I think eventually was getting nourished how he really wanted. But he had no trouble growing. So like he didn't seem hungry to me other than his behavior because he was gaining weight and he was a happy baby when he was happy. But then but I think adding solids to the picture really helped a lot.
Yeah. And that's always fun too. Like it's so messy, but it's also like a sweet time. And
Yes.
so for you to kind of have that transition, that was good for your mental health and kind of to be starting something different, like a different phase was likely,
Mhm.
and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but was likely so like refreshing.
So refreshing. Yes. I love that. I think just like the next little step, like something else to look forward to. I love what you just said. Like a little bit of like change, either in our schedule or like what he was able to do. I like the moment that he was able to crawl and like get to the toy that he wanted without me having to like go over there, pick him up, carry him across the room. Like
Mm.
all those little developmental things are kind of sad because you're like, oh, my baby's growing up. But at the same
Yeah.
time, each of them have new layers of freedom for you too. And so now, like, I'm making the same breakfast twice for both boys, most
Mm.
days. And then, like, also, they're allowed to go run in the backyard and they keep each other company and play monster trucks. And they can, like, both walk with me. I don't have to be pushing a
Yeah.
double jogging stroller if I don't want to. So, like, there's little small freedoms that come with, I feel like, every stage. There's new difficulties too, but enough
Yeah.
new to get you out of any rut that you're finding yourself in, which is so freeing.
Hmm. It's never like the same issue for forever. Like the sleep phases out, but then you get into like discipline and disobedience. So it's like this wild ride of just like motherhood, just always keeping you on your toes.
Mhm.
And just like the Lord saying, like, pay attention, like, just enjoy what's in front of you, which is just, I mean, it's so easy to say that, like, oh, they won't be little forever. Try to enjoy this season. But like in the moment, like the day to day, like mundane, it's just really hard to actually like take it in and truly
Yes.
enjoy it. I was talking to a friend recently and it was like, we try to take these like mental images of like these sweet moments and but then you actually look back and I'm like, I really can't unless I look at a picture. I can't picture my boys at like a year. Like I can really only see them as they are right now unless I look at a photograph.
Right.
Memories are just so strange.
And
And
the
that's
ways
your
that,
book touches on that, right?
yeah, a little bit. But like even the, like you were saying, even it's so funny because as we're recalling all of these things, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. But at the same time, I was just talking about wanting another baby like yesterday. And so now that we're talking about it, I'm like, actually, I don't know if I'm ready for that again. Like you brought me back to a place that's so easy for us to forget. And we really do.
Mm,
We're really good. And praise God that He created us this way to remember the gold nuggets sometimes much easier than it is to remember the hard until it gets brought up. And you're like,
mhm.
actually, I do remember that being really hard. Like even loving on my friends that are in newborn seasons now. They're like, is this normal? I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. Yes, that's normal. And you don't remember
But
until someone
yes,
else.
it is.
Yeah, I'm like, yes, I'm so sorry. I forgot to tell you about that one. So I just think we forget good and we forget bad. But like actually forgetfulness can really be a gift too because it helps us walk
Yeah.
away with what we remembered to be true, which is hopefully really good, you know.
Well, I just love your story so much and just how each boy was just so different and how it seems like you've really, even at 18 months postpartum, like have come so
Mhm.
far and you've really learned so much to where you can reflect back and just kind of say, you know, this is what I took away from this season and how I can use it to encourage like my friends. Like if you had to tell any mom, whether it be like a friend, a stranger, some girl listening to your podcast or reading your book, like
Mhm.
that is postpartum or is about to go through that, what like encouragement or advice would you give her?
This is so practical, but so it's going to seem bossy, but this is what has saved me on like some of my hardest days is having a note in the notes app on my phone of a people
Okay.
list I can call. So like what's driving you
Mm.
crazy? Is your dog barking driving you crazy? Is the dog getting the zoomies in the house because they didn't get walked today driving you crazy? Like make a list for all the things that might be driving you crazy and the people that are really good at that thing. So we have a neighbor, she loves Remy, our dog. So in the moments where I'm like, I just need Remy out for just a moment, like I call my neighbor, like, are you able to come let Remy play in your backyard for a second, or take him on a walk? The moments that I'm like, oh, it's 5 o'clock and I haven't thought about dinner and I can't even fathom having Chick-fil-A one more time. Like texting a neighbor and saying, do y'all have leftovers? Like, are you making extra? Can we come over? So number one is having a good list in your phone that you can recall because in the moments you're stressed out, you're not going to be able to recall. But to have something written down and be like, oh, you're right. When someone says, oh, like, let me know if you need any help, be like, I will, and add them to the note on your phone. That's what I do.
Don't say it if you
And
don't mean it.
don't say if you don't mean it because I do. I will ask you for help and you can say no, but I'll ask you. And that's the second thing of advice is once you have the note app on your phone, you need to actually ask these people for help. I think people
Mm,
are so much more generous than we give them credit for. And people are so excited to
mm,
jump in and help rescue you. They just don't know how and what you need. So to be able to say, like, I really need some ground beef. Like, can you please help me go to the store? I can't like think about putting these kids in a car seat and putting them through Publix just for a pack of ground beef, And they're like, yes,
right.
I'll drop it off. Just it one is so helpful, but two, it has taken my friendships to like a more intimate level because they have seen me and I've allowed them to see me in my moments where I'm struggling and like really need help. And
Yeah.
them feeling like they can meet me in those spaces has blessed me, but has also really blessed them. So that would be my thing. Like have
And
a
probably
list of
sets a good, sorry, it probably sets a good precedent for them as well. Like when you reach out for help, it probably makes them feel so much more likely to make you that person as well. Like whether they need you when they're single and not married, or like, hey, when I have a baby, Rachel
Mhm.
gets it.
Mhm. Yes. Like I have helped her fold her laundry and I have folded her husband's underwear. And so I'm sure she'd be happy to help fold mine. I'm like, yes, like we have seen each other in the depths. And so I'm happy to meet you there too.
Yeah.
And it has just enriched my life.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, I just can't thank you enough for chatting with me and for just being willing to share all those intimate, sweet, and not so sweet moments of your motherhood journey so far. I know so many women are going to get so much out of your experience, whether it's similar or whether it looks completely different. You've just been so encouraging. And like I said, you're just the queen of girlhood.
You're sweet. Thank you for listening to my stories about inverted nipples and all the things. Like I'm happy. I'm
Right?
happy to share. I don't gatekeep. And honestly, these conversations need to happen more. So I want to honor you too for starting
Yeah.
them and having these moments with women.
Well, I am super excited. And if you think of anybody that may have a great postpartum story, please keep me posted and let me know.
I will. I
Not
have
that
a few.
everyone's postpartum story isn't wonderful and beautiful.
Well, no, I have some incredible, good women that are very wise and can talk about their postpartum really well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's been so fun talking to you.
Love ya.
Bye, girl. Have a good day.
Bye.